maiden speech, and the maiden speech is Iqbal Mohamed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to make my maiden speech today. Before I begin, I congratulate my honourable friends, the member for Bolsover and the member for Erewash, for their excellent maiden speeches. They have set a high bar that I will struggle to match. I begin also by thanking the people of Dewsbury and Batley for the trust they have placed in me. I am honoured and humbled to be their representative and the voice for all residents. Dewsbury and Batley is a newly formed constituency, so I thank my two predecessors. First, I thank Kim Ledbetter for her service as MP for Batley and Spen. She helped secure funding for the town centre and became an MBE for helping promote social cohesion and tackling loneliness. I wish her well as the new member for Spen Valley. Next, I thank Mark Eastwood for his service as MP for Dewsbury. He was a man of great perseverance and helped secure over £40 million in funding for the town. I am honoured to follow Mark as the second local born and bred MP for Dewsbury. Madam Deputy Speaker, I stand here as the eldest of 6 children born to Gujarati Indian immigrants who came here in the 60s. I am an immensely proud and passionate, no-nonsense British Indian Muslim Yorkshireman who grew up on a council estate in Dewsbury Moor on free school meals and school uniforms. My late father, Ghulam Ahmed, and my mother, Nur Jahan Fatima, gave us love, put food in our bellies, and taught us proper British and Islamic values, such as honesty, integrity, hard work, friendship, compassion, and wanting the best for others. Madam Deputy Speaker, my political journey started when I was around 9 or 10 years old, when I remember standing in front of my parents' wardrobe mirror and asking God to make me one of 2 things when I grew up. I asked to be either a Blue Peter presenter, because a job which paid you to travel the world, do amazing activities, and be on TV was surely the best gig in town. Or, and I didn't know why at the time, I asked God to make me a parliamentarian. I do remember looking down at the colour of my skin and thinking that this might be difficult. But here I am today in the most diverse parliament in history, where I look forward to breaking down barriers, making friends, doing good and preventing harm. Now, if a Blue Peter producer is watching, I'm still available for a guest appearance or a Christmas special. Madam Deputy Speaker, I would like to put on record my heartfelt thanks to my amazing wife, Asma, who has been a pillar of support to me and my whole family for over 30 years. I also thank my teachers, wider family, campaign team, and everyone who ever helped me get to where I am today. Madam Deputy Speaker, one of the meanings of the name Dewsbury is God's town, which is reflected today in its diverse communities living in harmony and the many places of worship. It is home to the famous Dewsbury Market, which was established in the 14th century and was my first place of employment, aged 14, on a wage of £4 a day. Dewsbury and Batley became a global textile centre during the Industrial Revolution and world leader in recycled wool textiles known as shoddy and mongo. Today, despite the lack of support, my constituency is a leader in bed and furniture manufacturing and competes with Bradford for the best curry in the UK. It is also home to the Dewsbury Rams and the Batley Bulldogs rugby clubs. Dewsbury and Batley have too many worthy sons and daughters to mention, including Nobel laureates. I will, however, pay tribute to the late Joe Cox MP, who is fondly remembered and dearly missed to this day. Madam Deputy Speaker, I stand today in the Mother of Parliaments, but it is a sad indictment of our democracy that most people in our country are dissatisfied by the mainstream parties and their policies, politics and behaviours. Many feel trampled on, ignored, powerless and disenfranchised. And I'm repeatedly told that politicians are all the same and just in it for themselves. People have lost hope and trust in politics and politicians, and it is our duty in this House to restore their faith by putting the interests of the people who elected us above ourselves, our careers, party donors, corporations and malign influences. After 15 weeks as an MP, it is unclear to me how the whip system is democratic and in what way expensive gifts can help MPs better represent their constituents. I hope to support the Modernisation and Standards Committee and work in this place in a way to help restore the trust of the people we represent. Madam Deputy Speaker, some have sought to present my election and those of other independents as sinister or a threat to democracy. In fact, I was selected from 12 applicants to stand as a sole independent candidate in an open, rigorous and democratic process. My election had nothing to do with sectarian politics or caricatures about Muslim voters being manipulated by their spiritual leaders. It did have everything to do with the state of our country and the raw anger over Tory complicity and Labour's refusal to call out the unfolding genocide in Palestine. The attacks on October the 7th were appalling, and I reiterate the calls for an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages on both sides, and the unfettered access to humanitarian aid. When the Prime Minister endorsed the rights of the Israeli government to cut off water and electricity to the people of Gaza, people in Dewsbury and Batley said no, not in our name. What has happened in Gaza since is beyond words. Earlier this month, the UN reported that Israel has committed war crimes and the crime against humanity of extermination in Gaza, adding to the ICJ conclusion in January that Israel's actions may plausibly amount to genocide. Madam Deputy Speaker, most British people want an immediate ceasefire, an end to the UK's complicity. They are sick and tired of the double standards, with politicians lining up to condemn and sanction Russian aggression in Ukraine, yet defend the most heinous crimes of Israel. The compassion for Palestinian lives is not inversely proportional to the compassion for Israeli lives, or vice versa. All lives are equal, and our compassion must also be equal. For the Prime Minister to call for a ceasefire while arming and defending Israel is meaningless and does nothing to bring an end to the killing. And for the Foreign Secretary to yesterday deny a genocide is even taking place because the Israelis have not yet killed enough Palestinians is shameful and is to willfully misrepresent what genocide is. Legal experts are warning that international law and the rules-based order is collapsing along with the rest of Gaza. On Sunday, I met Amin, a British Palestinian constituent from Gaza. He told me his 93-year-old father and whole extended family had been displaced, and nothing remains of their homes or life in Gaza. So, on behalf of Amin and his family and all the Palestinian people, I implore the UK government to take a moral and legal lead and do everything in its power to uphold the UK's obligation to halt the genocide and to end the 76-year-old long unlawful occupation. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, the ongoing genocide was a huge factor in my election, but it's not the only factor. Voters in Dewsbury and Batley have been hit hard by 14 years of Tory austerity and decades of local government failure that has decimated our public services. In one of my wards, 3 in 5 children are now living in poverty. And across Kirklees, the most deprived people live on average 8 years less than the least deprived. It therefore simply defies belief that among the first actions of this Labour government was to pick the pocket of pensioners by taking away their winter fuel allowance and to refuse to lift the 2-child benefits cap. The fact is, a huge number of our fellow citizens are in real financial distress every day of every week, and the government needs to take immediate action to help them. And I am concerned about what the impact of yet more austerity will do to community cohesion. As a British Muslim person of colour, I am alarmed when I hear one of the candidates in the Tory leadership contest say that 1 million migrants should be deported and Muslims should be arrested for saying Allahu Akbar, which just means God is the greatest, because I know who the real beneficiaries of those comments will be. We saw where this kind of rhetoric leads. Riots on our street, asylum shelters attacked, religious institutions besieged by mobs, families and communities terrorised. This place must set the example for the people of Britain to follow. We must root out racism and bigotry and reject any narrative that seeks to blame asylum seekers and immigrant communities for the decades of austerity that has eroded the fabric of once secure communities. Madam Deputy Speaker, I believe that politics done correctly is one of the highest forms of public service and a force for good, for the many and not only the few. For my time in Parliament, I promise to not deliberately cause any harm to my fellow members, our nation, the people of our country, or the wider world. And I am committed to working with all members and with all communities to create a more just and equal society, to end poverty and tackle inequality, to speak for those feeling forgotten about and who have been left behind, and to try and harness their grievances as a force for good. Thank you.
Corey Collins.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd also ask members to refer to my register of interests, but energy is at the heart of our economy. It powers our homes, our schools, our workplace, and even our democracy. Most importantly, it's at the heart of our community.